Broadcasting from Orchard Park, New York,
and Boca Raton, Florida,
it's the Freight 360 podcast. From freight broker sales tips to sports talk, this podcast is all about helping you grow as a freight broker. We're your hosts, Nate Cross
and Benjamin Kowalski.
Let's talk freight. All right, welcome back for episode 176 of the Freight 360 podcast. I will have to warn you that intro was a little bit of a lie this week because Ben's not here. And so we don't have Boca Raton, Florida. Ben is sick. He's out with strep throat. So I've taken it upon myself to bring in a color commentator by the name of Andrew Pierce to join me today. So, Andrew, I'll get to you in a second. But, hey, if you are brand new to Freight 360, welcome. You found us at a great episode. We're going to be talking all about double brokering today and what you can do to prevent yourself from getting scammed. We got a lot of stories to tell, and hopefully you guys can learn from those stories. It's been rampant this year, but keep sharing us with your friends in the industry. We're dropping new episodes every single week, every Friday at midnight Eastern time. Share us with your friends. Leave that review. Check it out. If you like the video version, go to YouTube. If you just like the audio, you can get it on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts. So, Andrew, I'm putting you in the hot seat, and I got to warn anyone listening. He says he's a little nervous today, so don't worry. I've never lost a patient on the podcast. So welcome to the show. You are actually in Tennessee. So we should have said broadcasting from Orchard Park, New York. And is it Hermitage? Is that your town?
Hermitage, Tennessee, the one and only. Yep.
Is there anyone famous from Hermitage? Like a famous like old president? Who?
Yeah, Andrew Jackson. Yeah. So his
really?
home. He called it the Hermitage. So
Andrew Jackson. So what's funny is, if you remember right before we started recording, I said, hang on, I'm reading text. And somebody literally just sent me a text that said, Andrew Jackson, he's been moving freight since 1830, and sent me a picture of Andrew Jackson. So full circle right there. Hermitage, Tennessee. If you guys don't know where Hermitage is, it is in the greater Nashville area. It's a 615 area code. Andrew has been working with me for, 8 or 9 months now, less than a year. But so you're newer into brokerage. What are your thoughts on brokerage, first 12 months here?
It's a heck of an industry. Definitely a beast, a lot of moving parts, but
did you know what it was before you got started in it, though, or no?
I had an idea of what it was. I had the basic, how it works, but as far as like the everyday kind of like getting in there on the front lines and everything, I had no clue. So
here's what's funny, and I'll open the curtains here, or pull the curtains back, as they say. So I work for Pierce Worldwide Logistics in Tennessee, or the Nashville area, down in Brentwood, and Andrew, your name, ironically, your last name is Pierce. So your dad is the owner of the company, Kevin Pierce. So that's why you're a great color commentator for today's show, and we do a lot of work together every day, working with the fine agents at Pierce. So hey, anyone out there looking for a new home for your agency, or if maybe you're W-2, you want to switch to the agent world, you come talk to me, and Andrew and I will take care of you. But it's funny. So, coming into it, you having grown up around brokerage and trucking, because, you guys, there's a trucking company and a brokerage under the Pierce name. And, most people, you kind of hear what your parents do, what your family does. And then you go like spend a day at work with them. You're like, what? This is what you do. So, but now you're learning it, man. You're a seasoned rookie, I can say, in brokerage. So we have a good time, though. So let's hit on a little sports here. Every week for the last roughly 4 months, every single listener has had to hear me tout about the Super Bowl favorite Buffalo Bills, and they lost the divisional round again this year. This time to the Bengals. And it wasn't a 13 seconds. It wasn't a crazy penalty call. We just got outplayed, blown out, 3-score game. The Bills had no gas in the tank. Might be the last time we saw some key players like Tremaine Edmonds and Jordan Poyer play on our defense. I actually met Jordan Poyer yesterday, sending a bunch of packages back home where he lives in Oregon. Held the door for him. Tell him I was a big fan. But, just the sad end of the football season. But you're a Titans fan, and the Bills and Titans have had a pretty good rivalry the last 3 years we've played. We won't be playing each other next year. based on, you guys couldn't beat the Jaguars apparently to get into the playoffs and secure
Oh
the one
gosh.
seed.
Oh man.
But that's
Bring it up.
okay. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, it's down to the Chiefs and the Bengals, the 49ers, and the Eagles. So who do you think is going to win the AFC? What are your thoughts? Chiefs or
AFC.
Bengals?
I don't know. I think if the Bengals can beat the Bills, I think they're the new team of destiny. So I think
Yeah.
I think they're gonna go to the Super Bowl for sure.
Yeah. Man, I agree. The Bengals are so good. Joe Burrow he's cold blooded. He is just so on point. That team played really, really well recently. And if they continue to do the same thing, I mean, we saw Kansas City almost let Jacksonville hang on in that divisional game, right? It was ended up being 10-point game or something like that, but or 9, I don't even know what it was, but it was close. They were like within one score for a while there, and I think Cincinnati can win that game next weekend. I think the 49ers are the hot ones on the NFC side. Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, that team is just outstanding. So I'm going to project you're going to see the Cincinnati Bengals play the 49ers in the championship, and I don't know yet. I got to see how both teams look this weekend to predict the Super Bowl. But what do you think about that?
I don't know. I think it's a nice change of pace to see, these two teams. We don't typically see them, this deep into the playoffs. So, it'll be a fun game to watch.
Yep. All right. Well, that's all I got for playoffs. You'll still hear me talk about the Bills in the offseason and all that stuff, but I digress. So, if you are a freight broker, obviously you've got to use some good tools out there, and one of those is going to be a load board. So you got to make sure you check out DAT. Take the guesswork out of freight with DAT. The DAT Load Board Network is the largest on-demand freight marketplace in North America, connecting freight brokers with available capacity on any lane. Grow your business with tools that allow you to find new business partners. Plus, you can quickly qualify and onboard new carriers. And with the industry's leading freight rate data, you can make clear and confident pricing decisions. Use the link in the show notes or the YouTube description box to get your first month free of DAT Power Express or Trucker's Edge. And I actually just talked with DAT briefly earlier today. They're replacing all those load boards with what's called DAT1. I checked it out for the first time today. Did you know that, Andrew? DAT1? Have you heard of the new DAT product? Have you ever used it, though? Like, I didn't even click on the DAT1 link until today.
Right, yeah. I mean, I've seen the layout. I haven't used it directly, no. But yeah, I mean, it looks nice.
I'm going to be checking that out. But make sure if you want a free month of DAT, there's a link in the description box, show notes, whatnot, and you'll get that free month. Courtesy of our partnership here at Freight 360. All right, so today we're talking about double brokering. We're going to talk about what we've seen. We did an episode on this a couple months ago after I came back from DC with Kevin Pierce and your brother, Matt Pierce. We went down there with about 100 folks that are members of TIA to talk on Capitol Hill to some lawmakers and lobby about how nothing's being done about this crazy thing going on here. So what's interesting, I'll give you a little stat, in 40 plus years, our brokerage prior to Memorial Day last year, maybe could count on one hand the amount of double broker fraud instances that we dealt with, right? Doesn't mean they didn't happen. It's just all that popped up and we got scammed on. There have been, we did a town hall style meeting on this yesterday with our agents to talk with everybody about the issues and kind of get their thoughts on it and our thoughts. We're dealing with, was it 10 per month? Is that what the stat we came up with?
Something like that?
Yeah. 10 times a month, we're getting scammed. So this is not your typical, hey, I'm a broker, I give my load to a driver or to a carrier, they double broker or they rebroker it and everyone gets paid and we don't know. This is like somebody pretends they're going to haul a load, gives it to somebody else, snags a quick pay out of us, and then just goes rogue. And then the actual carrier ends up finding their way back to us, whether it's through the shipper or whatever, and says like, hey, I need to get paid on this. And we're like, no, we already paid so-and-so. Well, then we end up paying two different carriers and we lose money. So it's been huge. Over 80,000 reported instances last year. to the FMCSA, and they didn't investigate any of them. So we're hoping to see some change this year. So let's talk about what can you do to prevent double brokering. And these are some of the tips that we've put in place at Pierce, and that, this is also feedback from a lot of the folks that I've worked with over the years, especially our trusted agents. So it starts with vetting your carrier, right? So, it comes down to not just checking an MC number and making sure they have insurance, right? That used to do the job and make a lot of people feel good. That's not the case anymore, because I can go impersonate some good quality carrier and look good on paper, and that's not actually who I am. So we're talking about look at a carrier and look at things like how long have they had their authority? Have they been around for 90 days or 5 years? How many power units do they have registered? And how many inspections have they gotten? One of the biggest things I think we've seen is a carrier that's been around for over 2 years, has 6 trucks, and has 0 inspections in the last 2 months or 2 years, right? Like we had, if you remember yesterday, one of the guys in the company, he came up to us after the meeting and was like, hey, we had a list of some fraud MC numbers, so some bad actors out there, and he's like, hey, like, I've been using these guys, no issues. They're on one of my loads right now, and they're on this list of like bad brokers, and they probably just been getting away with it. And we looked them up online. We used Highway, SaferWatch, FMCSA, and we see they've got no inspection history. So they might be doing a good job at making sure that freight gets delivered, but it's not on one of their trucks. They're scamming someone somewhere. So those are some of the basic things to look at. Have you played around in the Highway tool at all, Andrew?
Not really played around in it, no.
So it's pretty cool. If you guys haven't ever used Highway, check it out. It used to be called Carrier Lists. It was created. It was started by Kevin Hill, who he's not in charge of it anymore. They had some revamp to it, and they sold it, I think, about a year ago. But one of the great guys over at FreightWave. So one of the things Carrier List does is it takes all that basic information from FMCSA. So, how long you've been in business, and how many power units do you have, and what violations and CSA score, all that stuff. But what Carrier List does is then it gives you additional insight. I use this tool all the time, and they're not affiliated with Freight 360 by any means. I wish they were, because I love the product so much. I would definitely promote it. But it'll look at things like they have had no inspections in the last 6 months or 24 months, and it'll flag that. It'll also have other user reported, incidents, like report of, hey, this carrier was identified on multiple fraud broker lists, or I caught them double brokering. It'll even look at where they've been inspected and show you on a map. Like, hey, they normally operate in the Southeast, but now they're trying to take a load in California for me for some reason. It'll tell you if there's a brokerage authority registered at the same address or within a quarter mile. It'll tell you the VIN number, make, model, and year of any tractor or trailer registered and verified through inspection data to that MC number. So you get all kinds of insights and warnings to let you know if a carrier is potentially going to be a fraudster or a double broker. So I'm a big fan of that one. We also use SaferWatch. TIA Watchdog is another good one. So TIA Watchdog is a tool within the TIA if you're a member there, and it's kind of like how Carrier 411 has Freight Guards, which is a report against a motor carrier for something, and TIA Watchdog will do the same thing. It could be carrier holding a load hostage, but double brokering has been hot lately, so that's been one on there. And what we found out is that we have all these tools, but we found out yesterday a lot of the folks in our company haven't been using them, right? Even though we have access to it.
Right.
So we set up a bunch of our new folks, or a bunch of our folks yesterday as new users in TIA Watchdog and on the Highway tool and whatnot. So, there's a whole bunch of tools out there to help out with double brokering. I'm going to ask you this, Andrew. You've dealt with a handful of these with our folks the past year. Have you got any crazy story that sticks out, double broker wise? We've had some.
Besides there's been a few instances of physical threats, and I'm going to come down there and hunt you down and all that kind of stuff. But
That's true.
That's pretty.
You're talking about, so there's been like the carrier that actually hauled the load saying, "Hey, you better pay me. I'm going to come down there and beat you up," or what?
I guess it must have been.
One of the things that we do at our company, with a new carrier, if we're not familiar with them yet, right? What we will do is we'll say, "Hey, if you want to request a quick pay out of us, which is going to be typically, within same business day or within a couple of days, we want to make sure that we can prove that you definitely hauled this load and it's you're not fraud. So we're going to request GPS tracking on these folks, and if they don't have GPS tracking throughout the entire load, we'll want to see a copy of their e-log. So the ELD inside their truck, which logs where they are, when they were driving, and all that stuff. We'll want to see that. And I have seen carriers that get pissed about that, and they're like, "I've been in business for 8 years. No one's ever asked me for a copy of my logs. I don't want track," and they'll get pissed off. But the reality is, unfortunately, we have to kind of tighten down our belt a little bit and kind of, get a tighter grip on the stuff that's going on as far as carrier fraud, and it's going to affect the good actors too, right? That's why we would rather take extra steps to vet out and weed out bad actors than to just penalize anybody that's a new, brand new to our company or brand new as a motor carrier, stuff like that. So, the GPS tracking. Do you remember the one where one of our guys, he was a little worried. He's like, "I think, I got 3 loads." He happened to be in the same city as the loads we're delivering. He had a carrier that agreed to all 3 loads. He goes to watch as the first 2 loads get delivered, and it's not the carrier he hired. They're not even the same. The 2 trucks that got there are not even the same carrier. And he's like, "Nate, I have one more of these on the road right now. What do I do?" And I was like, "Well, the first 2 were double brokered. We know that. So we're going to have to, freeze pay on the fraudster, get the actual carrier set up, get them paid. But this third one, I was like, tell him you want tracking." So he sends the tracking link to the carrier. They activate it, and they were over in Azerbaijan. Do you remember this? Like over in, so Azerbaijan's near like Iran, Turkey, Georgia, not the Georgia, like Atlanta, Georgia, but Georgia over in, I guess you'd call that like the Caucasus region. And it quickly deactivated the link and then reset it up over in like wherever the truck actually was. And I was like, man, that truck got from Azerbaijan to the United States very fast. But it's because we started to see trends of these new carriers. It's not every new carrier. We would get a trend of new carriers that every now and then we're setting these guys up, and they're the ones that are scamming us. They're the ones that are getting us left and right. So we're like, all right, we don't want to say no quick pay. We don't want to penalize the good folks, but to prevent getting screwed or frauded, we want to see where you're at and verify that you are in fact who you say you are, and you are where you say you are. So GPS tracking's big. E-logs, if we absolutely need to do as a backup. Other things too, right? Like we've seen this a bunch. Someone impersonates a broker, right? You say you're on the phone, or they impersonate a carrier. You're on the phone with a carrier. They give you an MC number. They look good. The insurance is good. Authority's good. And they're like, "Oh yeah, send the packet to this Gmail account, the carrier packet." And it's like, well, if you go on FMCSA's website, or if you're on SaferWatch or any of these carrier vetting websites, the FMCSA has, this email address on file as the email of record, but they want it sent to a random Gmail account. And we got dinged on a handful of those because we were sending setup packets to people that were impersonating a legit carrier with no intention to ever haul it. They just rebrokered it and then got a quick pay and then left. So then we started looking at, how can we properly vet out these folks? And one of the tips that we figured out is, if you're talking to because there's independent dispatchers, they're legit. They're there to help these small owner ops and small carriers out there with booking loads and handling paperwork. If you get a dispatcher who wants you to send a carrier packet or a rate confirmation to an email address that's not the FMCSA record email address, just call that carrier's their corporate line or whatever's registered. Ask somebody there, "Hey, I'm talking to Jim over here at blah blah blah. just want to verify that he is someone that I can send a carrier packet over to. He's not listed on the FMCSA for you, but he says he's working for you. And they'll tell you, like, no idea who that is. Or, it's my dispatcher. So that step right there can save you. And again, these are things that we've figured out over, the last 6 or 9 months. It's crazy. I mean, Andrew, you've been in this game pretty much since everything went wild. I'm almost wondering if you're the bad omen that has caused all this. No,
must be.
But I mean, this was not a normal occurrence if you go back in the previous years. You had a couple here and there, but mostly it was done as you'd get like a small carrier who would take a load and ends up not having a truck, and he gives it to his buddy, right? And we just don't find out about it. Whereas now, like, it's their business model to just defraud people, steal money. I'm going to pretend to be a carrier, get a quick pay, and then screw the next guy. And then they fall off the face of the earth. So
right, yeah, it's interesting though, because you would think, in the past, before computers and technology and everything, that it would be more prevalent. You would think tracking and everything would weed it out to some degree, right?
You would think that. I also think about that with any kind of scam that goes on. People just get smarter and they find new ways. Like, I think whenever we create a system to prevent fraud, the fraudsters, they get smart and they're like, all right, they're comfortable doing it this way. Let's find a new way. It's like, the Egyptian prince email scam. Like, hey, you're the heir of an Egyptian. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Like,
throwing it back.
So, I mean, for a couple of years, like, people got dinged on that, and then they moved to other stuff. People started using like online dating to scam people and have them send them money. You had the I don't know. I got scammed on. I don't have any cryptocurrency anymore. I dabbled in it for like a very short period of time just to play around, and I got someone hacked into my email, hacked into my cell phone, had my phone number ported over to their phone, used it to get a password reset code sent to my phone number, hacked into my Coinbase account, and offloaded like $1,000.
Wow.
They get smart. It's complex. Yeah. Anyway, I agree. You think with technology having improved, we'd get better at this, but I think they just get smarter. So it was funny. We started to ask our folks yesterday, in addition to the stuff that we tend to see, we asked them, like, what do you guys, like, what are the red flags that they would see? And I want to talk about some of those right now. So one of the big ones was like background noise. So if you're on the phone with the carrier or a dispatcher and they claim they've got like 1 truck or 2 trucks, but it sounds like they're in the call center full of like 50 people, right? Like, that's telltale sign of it doesn't add up, right? And we've seen these double broker operations pop up in Eastern Europe, in Pakistan, and India. Nothing against those parts of the world. There's some beautiful areas there, but it just tends to be where this stuff has popped up. Same thing with, some people, you hear Glendale, California, is it 616? Won't take a load out of there. It's just the reality is there's these certain areas where stuff has popped up. Armenia is another one of them. So if you hear a lot of background noise when you're talking to a small quote unquote owner operator, that's a red flag. Another one, let's say you've got a load that you've posted and the rate is like, it's okay, but it's not like you're paying super high. You're kind of doing like one of those post and pray. Like, yeah, I'm going to make some outbound calls, but I'll just post it as well anyway. If somebody calls you up, doesn't even try to haggle whatsoever, and just says, yeah, I'll take it. Red flag. You think about most of the time when a carrier calls you, you'll say something like, they'll ask you about the load, and you got to post it at $2,000, and they'll say something like, "What's your best rate, boss?" They want to haggle with you. You're like, that's 2,000 all in. That's the best I can do. All right, 2,600. Send me the rate con. And it's like, well, no, right? They want to haggle. They want to pinch every little penny out of you. But so if somebody just hops in on not a bad load, but not as desirable, and they just take it, right? Red flag. Same thing. Let's say they're a dispatcher and they don't say, hey, let me call my driver and just verify. They just say, yep, that's good. Red flag. We have, the instances where a driver or a dispatcher, whether they're an independent dispatcher or a company dispatcher, if they say, hey, I got to call my driver, those like 99% of the time do not end up being fraud or double brokering because they're, they have no reason to pretend they're calling a driver if they're just trying to fraud you. Maybe they'll get smart and start doing that though. I don't know. Like the low rate, right? They hop on a low rate super fast when no one else does. Here's one I thought was funny. Foreign accent with a Western Americanized name. So like you get again, I want to be politically correct here, but you get this person that sounds Eastern European and their name is John Smith. Right?
Right. Never seen that before, right?
I thought it was funny. We had I won't go into too much detail. We had an instance where a guy, we could tell he was not American. He sounded like he was maybe Middle Eastern, Indian, somewhere over in that part of the world where that accent or whatnot was common. But he used, instead of a common American name, he used a Mexican name. And it was really strange because he was impersonating an American, used a Mexican name, but sounded Middle Eastern. So, yeah, it was a good attempt, but we get a lot of those. The generic ones, right? Like the Mikes and the Bobs and the John Smiths, John Does. Ooh, what's funny is like you get someone who gives like a celebrity name and they have no idea that the name they're giving is famous. So like a dispatcher who sounds Eastern European and their name is Josh Allen or Derrick Henry, George Washington. So you get those. Somebody posts a load. So here's another way, right? You hire somebody if you have a weird inkling, check that, run that lane on DAT or truck stop, wherever, right? Is it reposted? Because there you go. Clear sign right there. And again, I don't want to make you guys think that you got to add 20 minutes to every single load that you're working on because you're afraid to get burned. But these are just like, a collective amount of things that we've seen from our folks, and better to share that information. So some other stuff you can do is, you're going to give a load to a driver, withhold the pickup address or the pickup number until the driver accepts GPS tracking. So that, hey, the load's picking up in Hermitage, Tennessee, right? The one and only Hermitage. But you don't give the exact address or the pickup number for the shipper until they've accepted GPS and you can verify that they are in fact going to be the ones hauling that load for you. Is there any cool spots in Hermitage, by the way, for anyone that's ever going to visit Tennessee that they should go check out?
Yeah. Go to Nadine's. Excellent.
What is Nadine's?
Nadine's is a little, I wouldn't call it a bar. They've got pretty good sandwiches there, good Phillies and everything. Probably, if you're going to get a Philly in Nashville, go to Nadine's. It's, they won't disappoint you.
Hot chicken sandwich. What's your go-to? Are you a Hattie B's guy?
I think I'm a Prince's guy, to be honest. Back in the day, I think I used to be Hattie B's, but I've converted. So Prince's is the original. So you got to go with Prince's. Oh yeah, did you got Prince's usually?
I got Prince's at the is it 5th and Broadway? That like little shopping restaurant area down off Broadway, 5th and Broadway.
Yeah, downtown. Yep.
They have a little spot there, on the second floor. Prince's does.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought
anyone in Nashville. Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't make me Google this right now. Prince's downtown. I'm Googling while we're recording because I want to know if I got this right or not. Prince's downtown Nashville. Pretty sure I'm right. Prince's Hot Chicken Shack. Yep, Assembly Food Hall. 5055 Broadway, Nashville, Tennessee. Second floor.
It's the best.
Yep. All right. Anyway, but you can withhold that delivery address or pickup number until they accept GPS tracking and all that good stuff. And so, in specific on GPS tracking, you're going to get a lot of pushback from some of the older, more tenured veteran drivers that they don't want to accept it. You've got to decide as a company what you're comfortable with. So if you've got a brand new carrier that you've never worked with and they're raising a couple of hairs on your back of your neck or on your arm. You're like, something seems off here. Some folks in our company, they require GPS tracking on everybody, every load, all the time. And it's not just for double brokering. It's because their customer wants to make sure they have timely updates. But it's a good practice company-wide to say, hey, if you're a new carrier and you've never hauled for us, we're not going to tender you a rate confirmation or give you a pickup number or full address until we've confirmed that you've accepted our tracking. You could also, like we talked about, verifying a dispatcher with the owner of the company. Just call them up, say, hey, this guy says he works with you and want to make sure. And the other thing is request driver's information. If you talk to a dispatcher, if they can't give you the MC number on the side of the truck or the color or make and model of the cabin trailer, the tractor number, trailer number, driver's name, driver's cell phone, sometimes they can give you some of it. And they're like, well, I got to figure out which driver it is. Well, let me know first. But if they can't give you anything, huge red flag. And lastly, when in doubt, and we've caught a lot of these before we've gotten scammed out of money, is get your customer involved. Hey, I'm sending this driver in, should have a red truck. Truck number is 123. MC number is 1234567. Just make sure that that's who we're supposed to be loading. Make sure that that's who it is that shows up. And then when hey, Mr. Broker, it's Mr. Customer here. Truck showed up. It's not the same MC number. Boom, you caught him right there. So, some tips right there. What are your thoughts on double brokering, Andrew, overall? Or anything I missed there? I know I went through a lot of the tips that we've kind of compiled from our company.
Well, I've actually got a question for you. So one of the situations that we saw today was someone was trying to submit paper logs rather than electronic logs. What exactly does that mean? And what are the
good question. This is a good newbie 101 question. So about 5 years ago or so, the law was passed to require ELDs or electronic logging devices inside of trucks. And if your truck was older than 1999, you were grandfathered in. So back in the day, aka like 5 years ago, they truck driver to log their hours throughout the day. So they would have this like rectangle sheet of paper, and it would have statuses like on duty, driving, rest, because the FMCSA regulates how many hours in a given day you can be driving versus on like a sleep or off-duty status. So they would have to draw a line across and say, oh, for these 4 hours I was driving, for this 30 minutes I was on break, for lack of better terms, for these next 5 hours I was driving, and then for these next 10 or 11 hours I was off-duty sleeping or whatever. But drivers would lie, and if they would drive extra, and they would just change their logs by just drawing the line differently. So as a safety precaution, they said, hey, we're going to make sure we're going to mandate that anyone who has a truck newer than 99, which was, just at the time was like 18 years old or newer, had to have this electronic device in their vehicle. And they implemented it over a certain period of time before they started enforcing it. So now if a driver has to show their logs, whether it's to at an inspection, to a highway patrol officer, or at a inspection point, whatever the case might be, they can just show them their electronic log that shows, how long they've been on duty, that they're not violating that. And you can't lie on those, because when your truck's driving over a few miles an hour, it triggers it that you're driving. But if you have older power unit, older truck, you can still use paper logs. They're grandfathered in. So to request logs from somebody to prove that they did haul that load for you, paper log could easily be fudged, and they could just make it up and say, oh yeah, that's just handwritten. That's all it is. Whereas an electronic log is created by a computer and will typically show you timestamps, locations, all that, like the status. So that's why a paper log is no, it's no more reliable than a falsified bill of lading or POD or a rate confirmation. So it's just a forged document, but you can't forge an electronic, an ELD log. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. It's another thing that amazes me about how how it's become more prevalent the more the technology advances.
I'm waiting for somebody to be able to have, like, how you could like jailbreak an iPhone and you could like do whatever you wanted to your iPhone. I'm waiting for somebody to be able to like jailbreak their ELD, be able to break the laws. So who
It's
knows?
coming. It's got to be.
Well, good stuff. We got some other questions here from our listeners. We'll get into it in a second here. But first, make sure if you're looking to hire, check out our friends over at Lean Solutions Group. Lean is the industry leader in nearshore staffing solutions with offices in South America, including freight broker, back office operations, accounting, tech development, business development, marketing, customer service, and many other positions. To learn more about the vast solutions that Lean has to offer your freight brokerage or agency, visit them at www.leangroup.com. That's LEAN group.com. All right, here's some questions. And Andrew, you're invited to hop in on these questions if you're feeling confident. I know you're kind of you're a rookie, right? And you're on your rookie contract still.
Yeah,
but we'll see what you got. So
All
here's
right.
the first question. I'm a small carrier, so we got a small trucking company here. Small carrier that primarily specializes in flatbed freight. What do you recommend on how to start creating a list for customers in our industry, or where to look besides Google Maps? I'm wanting to grow with direct freight versus through brokers and eventually add a freight broker service to our business. So this is a small trucking company, and they want to get customers directly instead of using a broker. And I don't know why they're using Google Maps. I'm going to defer to the variety of other episodes and content on how to find customers, but I would do the same thing that we teach on how freight brokers can find customers, whether that is referrals, following a BOL, Googling, LinkedIn, Facebook groups, databases like ZoomInfo, Chamber of Commerce, Reference USA. There is a ton of free and paid for stuff out there on how you can find a certain shipper. So if you're looking for flatbed freight, maybe you want lumber, steel, brick, stone, whatever it is, check out a lot of stuff online and just go to freight360.net and go to the content and just search for like shippers or prospecting. You'll find tons of videos, blogs, and episodes specifically on that. So I will defer you to that. But yeah, good. It's a good method. I do like when a carrier that's small gets direct customers, but then can inject and add a brokerage to their company to service those same customers for additional freight that they don't have trucks for. Keeps one point of contact, and that's a good way to grow. Next question. I asked one insurance agent to get me contingent insurance coverage, but she asked me how many trucks I will run. Is it a common question? And is it possible to guess how many I will run? Andrew, I'm gonna quiz you here. Do you know what? Well, she's talking about contingent cargo. Do you know what contingent cargo coverage is? I'm going to give you the correct answer for your guess. I'm curious. What do you think?
Contingent would be like if so the carrier would carry obviously the cargo insurance, and then contingent is kind of a one-off policy, right? Like it's
You're close.
It's not like an annual thing.
The carrier is going to cover the carrier is going to have a primary cargo policy, typically $100,000. Now, for whatever reason, if that policy were to not pay out on a claim, example would be coverage was canceled mid-shipment. There was an exclusion for some reason on there. It lapsed mid-shipment. Whatever, right? The broker can then have a contingent policy that acts as a safety net. But it depends. What your contingent cargo policy can cover or not cover all kinds of things. So you're a good insurance agent or insurance broker will be able to help you get a policy that makes sense to you financially based on the cost, as well as offsetting risk by what it covers and doesn't cover. But so she's saying, because it was a girl who asked this question, I remember. She's saying that the insurance agent wants to know how many trucks she's going to run. It's not relevant because you're a broker. You're buying a brokerage insurance policy. You don't have trucks, so that's an irrelevant question. So I would go ask a different insurance agent, or maybe your question is, maybe we're confused and you're asking a different question. But contingent cargo policy is not based on how many trucks a broker will run. Last question. What's the deal with shippers and brokers wanting a trailer less than 9 years old? So this is a carrier that asked, why are all these shippers and brokers out there not wanting to use old equipment? What do you think, Andrew? What is your guess? Like, what does just common sense or gut instinct tell you? Think about it like if you go to hop in an Uber and it's 10 years old versus brand new.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to, if you don't want to put your stuff on an old rickety truck, right?
Yeah. Breakdowns, poor maintenance. We've one of the things that we do when we vet carriers out is we'll look at CSA scores, and some of the things that we have like fairly low tolerance on is things like brakes, tires, because these are things that they slowly over time will wear out. Like your brakes and your tire tread will wear out slowly over time, and with proper preventative maintenance, you can track this stuff and schedule and perform, maintenance and repairs and stuff on a scheduled basis, so you don't hit that point where you'd fail an inspection. So a company that has old equipment is probably more likely to have poorly maintained equipment, and it'll be affected in their safety or CSA score. So I'll tell you, like with Pierce, our trucking company, Warren Pearson Company, we pride ourselves on the reliability and the well-serviced nature of our assets. So beautiful red tractors, based down in Haines City, Florida, reefer trailers behind them. I got down. You've been down there, right? When you were younger, probably to the terminal. Yeah. I was down there. Well, I guess it would be 2021, so that's not last year anymore. It's 23 now. About a year and a half ago, I was down there. Beautiful trucks, but there's a safety person that works there. There's a maintenance person that works there. It's not just, hey, I'll wait till my tires blow out and then I'll get new tires, or I'll wait till my brakes run out and then I'll get new brakes. No, scheduled preventative maintenance. That's the kind of stuff that gives a carrier a good reputation, good on time percentage because they're not breaking down. That was the answer to your question. Not to say that an old truck or an old trailer isn't going to be useful, because they can be if they're properly maintained, but companies that have older equipment, it's a higher likelihood that it's poorly maintained. So that's pretty much it. So that's my that's our take on double brokering. So just to highlight it, you take the extra step, right? You're gonna have intuition if something doesn't seem right or it seems too good to be true, it probably is. If a carrier or dispatcher offers to take a load for way too cheap, or doesn't haggle, or their name or accent doesn't seem to line up, or there's a lot of noise in the background, red flags. Check them out. Safer Watch, TIA Watchdog, the FMCSA's Safer System, Carrier 411, Highway. Let us know what else you guys are using too, that you want it. We could check it out and take a look at some other carrier vetting tools, but just due diligence. That's all it is. So yeah, Andrew, episode 176, your first time on the podcast. Won't be your last, so I'm gonna get you back on here.
All right,
my color commentator. What'd you think, man? Did you have fun?
Absolutely.
I didn't talk a whole
lot. Yeah, man. I mean, anytime you need somebody, Ben's got some big shoes to fill, but happy to be here.
Let me ask you this: so you obviously in your first year in brokerage, what do you based on what you've seen, what would you like to see different in this industry? If you could change a couple of things, what would you do? You think would make life better or easier or just good overall in brokerage?
Just in general, or related to double brokering and
anything? Yeah, anything. Double brokering or anything. If you could wave a magic wand, how would you change the industry?
I'd like to see people, treat people with a little more respect, just in general. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say that it's all encompassing in the entire industry, but 50% of the interactions that you have with other people.
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, it can be.
I agree with you.
Disrespectful and unnecessary.
I would give a very similar answer to that. I think it's the way that brokers talk to and about carriers, and carriers talk to and about brokers. We even think about some of the shippers out there. We've seen, we've had some folks that we've had to let go, and emails still kind of trickle through, and you get some just nasty customers. We had like a customer bad mouthing one of our old brokers, and I was like, why would anybody want to work with that customer? Right?
Yeah.
What was the line? Yeah. It was like, hey, if you promise to stop with your ridiculous email follow-ups, I might have some work for you, or something like that.
Yeah, he basically claimed that the guy was harassing him or something, but we saw the email chain. It wasn't bad at all. So
not at all. But you get a lot with brokers and carriers. Brokers say that carriers are screwing them when it's one way, and then the market shifts like it is now, and you got carriers saying that brokers are screwing them with low rates. We all want to do a good job. I think you take care of everybody, you treat people well, and good business and profits will follow that. So I agree with you, man. Well, good to have you on. We'll see how the conference championships go for the AFC and the NFC this weekend, and we'll be seeing you guys, or you'll be seeing us or hearing us next week. It'll be the first February episode 177 coming up. Andrew, any last thoughts?
Nope, nothing for me, but thanks for having me.
Of course. And until next time, and apparently next season, go Bills. That wraps up this episode of Freight 360. Check out the show notes for links to anything that we've referenced on this episode. And make sure to visit us online at freight360.net to see our entire library of episodes, videos, blogs, and more.
And make sure to check us out on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily and weekly tips and content. If you'd like your question answered on the show, fill out the Contact Us form on our site, and we'll see you next week.